Thank you, Barbara. As this service is taking place, there are Buddhist monks in India are busy creating a mandala, which they're usually here creating a mandala. And because of the COVID, they weren't able to make it this year. We were going to try to televise it here this morning so we could sort of have that be part of the service, but unfortunately technical difficulties got in the way. But in any way, and so I've written my comments sort of around that theme and thought I'd stick to it in any event, because I think it's a beautiful metaphor, the creation of a mandala, a beautiful work of art and devotion that ends up, when they're done with it, with all this beautiful concentration that they use to build this beautiful piece of art, they take it to the river and throw it in the river and destroy it. I mean, it's, wow, by Western standards, it's a very strange concept to make a beautiful piece of art and then destroy it. In the West, we make art to grasp at eternity, not to then basically just let it flow down the river. I think flowing in the river is also an interesting metaphor too. And we, here in the West, we consider the finest art to be that which stands the test of time and makes the artist immortal. We think of Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Shakespeare. So what are the monks doing? This is a wonderful, if shocking metaphor for the central Buddhist teaching that nothing is permanent. Everything changes. There's constant change in the world. The teaching is that only through gaining a complete understanding of this reality can our suffering be eliminated. It's sort of, these are very central Buddhist concepts. But if nothing is permanent, how do we find meaning? How can our suffering be eliminated if there's no unchangeable source of meaning that I think is, to some extent required to end at least my suffering, I suppose. And how do we find meaning in the midst of constant change? For the monks, anyway, my takeaway is that the answer is to embrace change, to embrace impermanence, even celebrate it. This is at least part of what gives our lives meaning. And with this in mind, I chose the reading from Ecclesiastes this morning, which I think conveys a similar sentiment in the Western tradition. All is endless change, all is in flux. And how do we find, the question Ecclesiastes raises is, how do we find meaning in that? Ecclesiastes begins in the, familiar maybe to some of you, the King James Version, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. That's also been translated into some modern versions as utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. So that's a little bit hard to take. Everything meaningless, really. And I just read recently that the word that their vanity in Hebrew is a word which really more refers to smoke or vapor. So it's sort of saying everything is smoke, everything's vapor. And this seems to provide, at least for me, a better understanding of the passage. Everything's not necessarily meaningless, rather it's like vapor, always changing, opaque, making it impossible to understand or to find meaning in. Quite a message, but somewhat, I think, similar to the Buddhist view, don't you think? So what then is the proper response to the insight that all is smoke and vapor and that meaning is forever hidden, just out of reach? For Ecclesiastes, anyway, the first appropriate response is humility and fear of God. And here's a quote a little bit further in Ecclesiastes from chapter 5. Do not be rash with your mouth, and let not your heart utter anything hastily before God. For God is in heaven, and you are on earth. Therefore, let your words be few. A fool's voice is known by his many words. In the multitude of dreams and many words, there is also vanity. But fear God, for this is man's all. So fear God, that's a very Old Testament kind of a concept, and I think it's one that I at least have a little trouble sort of understanding. What does that mean? I guess I take it to mean a command to be humble, just as that passage sort of is trying to convey. To fear our inclination to know, our inclination to be right, our inclination toward pride and hubris. That's what we should be fearing, and God's, I guess, response to that, which is more of an Old Testament kind of a prophet thing, anyway. And another answer in Ecclesiastes is later in chapter 9. This is more in line with my interpretation of what the monks' response to this all changing aspect of the world is. Ecclesiastes suggests that in spite of our inability to understand and find meaning, we should accept our lot, work hard, struggle, and be grateful for what we've given. And here's another quote from chapter 9. Live joyfully with those whom you love all the days of your vain life, which he has given you under the sun, all your days of vanity. For this is your portion in life, and in the labor which you perform under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. For there is no work or device or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going. Whoa. It's a pretty dour message, but I think it lines up well with the central Buddhist message that life is change, and that the only appropriate response to this is to embrace the change, to find joy in change. And as I thought about this, preparing my comments for today, it occurred to me that perhaps enlightenment is simply the full realization of the fundamental and constantly changing nature of our world. A realization that I think must also include letting go of our desire to find permanence. For me, the Christian concept of faith is perhaps close to the Buddhist concept of enlightenment. Perhaps enlightenment is not, as I have for many years thought of it, a transformation of a human into a superhuman, into a God, an all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful God. No, perhaps instead it is the final realization and submission to our condition as humans, subject to impermanence, for whom our search for meaning, our search for love, is a never-ending chase after vapor. It's a fundamental change of perspective. But I think faith has the added dimension of confidence that even though all is change, all is well, all will be well. In my family, we have a quote that we like to use whenever things get rough, which my daughter Emery came up with when my son had a bad accident and was in a coma in the ICU and the rest anyway. And so she'd read it somewhere, but it is, everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. I think that's conveys that sense of faith that, okay, it may not be all right now, but it will be all right in the end somehow. I think that's a sort of, interestingly strong statement of faith from my daughter, who really isn't actually very religious at all. So interesting that that's where it comes from. Let me close my comments on this with the quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk, which I think conveys somewhat the idea that enlightenment and faith might be closer for us all than we might think. It's not something out there that that's this unattainable thing, but it just might be a shift in the way we look at the world. And here's the quote. I laugh when I think I once sought paradise as a realm outside of the world of birth. It is right in the world of birth and death that the miraculous truth is revealed. And the moment of awakening may be marked by an outburst of laughter. But this is not the laughter of someone who has won the lottery or some kind of victory. It is the laughter of one who, after searching for something for a long time, suddenly finds it in the pocket of his coat. Okay, the second song. Now I'll move to my other role here. I'm going to sing as a song called More Than This. It's sung by Brian Ferry, who was written during his time with Roxy Music. And again, the reason I like it is because I really like the chorus And again, this is a song with a message of another aspect of love, the requirement that we must be present and fully in the moment to love and to understand love. Again, it's the chorus which conveys this message. And the chorus is, more than this, there is nothing. Trying to bring us into the present. So that's really my objective of singing this song today, to try to really get us all here in the present. And and again, we'll have a little silent meditation after the last chorus is over. And see if we can enter into that space, into that present space.